If you're thinking about buying real estate in Mexico, it's helpful to know what to plan for ahead of time so that you're not just figuring it out as you go. People are often surprised to find out that the sale price or listed price is not the actual total cost of acquisition when buying property in Mexico. So it's so important to have closing costs clearly explained upfront. In today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to break down what closing costs in Mexico actually look like, what you're really paying for, what catches many foreign buyers off guard, and how to avoid expensive surprises during the buying process. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Paradise Listings channel. My name is Sarah Rose, and I'm a licensed real estate advisor here in the beautiful Riviera Maya. I also run a real estate agency called Paradise Listings, and I'm a foreign investor myself, so I've been in your shoes. After going through this process personally and helping buyers from Canada, the US, and abroad purchase property in Mexico successfully, I've realized that one of the biggest stress points is simply not understanding the numbers clearly before getting started. So the goal of this video is to make the process feel simpler, more transparent, and a lot less intimidating. If you're considering buying property in Mexico, especially in places like Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Cancun, Puerto Morelos, or anywhere else in the Riviera Maya, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we create videos just like this one about real estate, investing, relocation, legal considerations, and life in Mexico. And of course, if you have questions while watching the video, drop them in the comment section below. And let's get into today's video on closing costs. All right, so let's get into it. One of the very first things to understand is that closing costs in Mexico are probably different from what you might be used to in the US or Canada or wherever else abroad that you might be from. So a good general rule is to budget approximately 6 to 10% of the purchase price for closing costs. And this is something buyers really need to prepare for early on because many people focus entirely on the listing price without realizing that there are these additional costs attached to formalizing the transaction legally here in Mexico. So what exactly are you paying for? The largest portion is usually the acquisition tax. This is a government tax paid when purchasing property in Mexico. And here in the state of Quintana Roo, where places like Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and Cancun are located, it's generally around 4% of the property's value. Now, here's something extremely important that many buyers don't realize. The acquisition tax is often calculated based on whichever value is higher. So the purchase price, the cadastral value, or the appraised value determined during the transaction. So let's say someone negotiates a very low purchase price thinking they got an incredible deal. If the appraisal comes in significantly higher, the government may calculate taxes based on that higher number instead. This is one of the reasons why working with professionals who understand how these transactions are structured in Mexico really matters. The next major cost is notary fees. Now, this is another area where Mexico works very differently from countries like Canada or the United States. In Mexico, the notario público is not just someone witnessing signatures. A notary is a highly specialized legal expert appointed by the government. They're responsible for validating and formalizing the transaction, ensuring taxes are paid properly, registering the property transfer, reviewing documentation, and ultimately issuing the escritura, which is the official title deed. So the notary plays a central legal role in the transaction here in Mexico, and their fees are regulated by a tabulator in each state. Another important cost for foreign buyers is the fideicomiso, or bank trust. Now, if you're buying within the restricted zone in Mexico, which includes most beachfront and coastal areas, foreigners typically purchase through what's called a fideicomiso. We have an entire video dedicated to this topic if you want to know more, but in essence, the restricted zone refers to land within 50 kilometers of the coastline and 100 kilometers from international borders. Foreigners can absolutely buy property there legally. The fideicomiso is simply the legal mechanism that allows it. You are still the full beneficiary of the property. Think about it kind of like estate planning. You can sell the property, rent it, renovate it, inherit it, or pass it on to your heirs. The bank acts as the trustee, but you retain the rights to the property. There is usually an initial setup fee for the fideicomiso plus an annual maintenance fee paid to the bank each year. And depending on which bank you end up using, which has to be a Mexican bank, these costs can vary, but it's typically around 2,500 USD for the setup and 500 for the annual maintenance. On top of that, there are registration fees and administrative costs. These include things like registering the property with the public registry, permits, certificates, document processing, official appraisals, and other administrative legal expenses associated with closing. At Paradise Listings, once you've found a property that you're interested in, our legal team provides a full breakdown of estimated closing costs. One of the things that we try very hard to do is make sure that our buyers understand the full financial picture before moving forward with the property, so that there are absolutely no unpleasant surprises later on. We know that buying property abroad already comes with enough emotions and moving pieces, so clarity really matters. Another thing buyers often ask is, can closing costs be financed into the mortgage? And the answer is sometimes it can be partially, but in Mexico, most purchases here are still heavily cash-based compared to markets like the US and Canada. Mortgage structures here work differently. Interest rates are generally higher, especially for foreign buyers, and many buyers purchasing in the Riviera Maya are either international investors, second home buyers, or retirees purchasing with cash or large down payments. Another expense that buyers sometimes forget to budget for is furnishing the property, especially if you're buying pre-construction or a property that comes unfurnished. And this can vary a lot depending on the type of property and the lifestyle that you're trying to create and your personal taste. So it's important to recognize that some developments in the Riviera Maya are delivered turnkey, meaning they already include furniture, appliances, decors, and so on, right? Even down to the kitchenware sometimes. Others might have more limited furnishings, so it's important to clarify exactly what is included before purchasing. If you're buying an unfurnished property, I always recommend creating a furnishing budget early on so that you can really plan ahead, right? Because even those smaller expenses like appliances, air conditioners, curtains, beds, sofas, decor, it all adds up, right, really quickly. And this is another reason why understanding your real total investment from the beginning truly matters, not just the purchase price itself. Now, here's another important point. Some of the expenses related to closing costs can later become important from a tax perspective when you eventually sell the property. Many closing costs, right, legal expenses, acquisition taxes, trust setup fees, and documented improvements to the property can potentially help reduce capital gains exposure later on when structured and documented properly. That's one of the reasons it's so important to keep organized records and work with qualified professionals, licensed professionals throughout the transaction from day one. This is also why buyers should pay close attention to who is representing them during the process. Mexico is becoming increasingly regulated when it comes to real estate transactions, especially in states like Quintana Roo, where licensed agents are now expected to appear properly on closing documentation, have their license appear. So unfortunately, there still are people operating without licenses, without formal training, or without the legal knowledge needed to properly guide foreign buyers through a transaction. And while that might not seem important at the beginning, or you might just not be aware, it can create major issues later on if things were not structured correctly or if critical details were overlooked during due diligence and the closing process. So this is not the moment to cut corners. You want proper legal review, you want to work with a licensed agent, you want to review your contracts, you want to verify zoning, permits, ownership history, and the legal status of the property, and you want professionals involved who understand how to protect you throughout the entire process. especially in rapidly growing markets like Tulum and parts of the Riviera Maya, where opportunities move quickly and regulations change. So it's so important. One thing I always tell people is that buying property in Mexico can absolutely be safe and incredible. It's been my case, it's been the case for all the clients I've worked with, but you need the right people around you. That makes all the difference. Because our goal at Paradise Listings is not just to help people buy property, it's to help them buy confidently so that they can focus on the excitement of their next chapter here in the Riviera Maya. Once people understand how the buying process works, what closing costs they need to plan for, the whole process becomes much less intimidating. Mexico has given me an incredible quality of life. It's something I genuinely love helping other people explore. So hopefully this video helped clarify what closing costs in Mexico actually look like and helped you understand what you should realistically budget for. And if you're currently exploring buying property in Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Puerto Morelos, Cancun, anywhere in the Riviera Maya, feel free to reach out to us through the links below this video. We're always happy to hear from you and to be a resource first. And again, if you found this video useful, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, share it with anyone who you think might get some value from the video too, and drop your questions into the comments. We take the time to review every single one of them and connect with you and get you the answers you're looking for. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.